Berlin, April 1945. The city was collapsing, both in stone and in spirit. Smoke poured from shattered buildings, and the sound of artillery echoed like a death drum. The once mighty capital of the Reich had become a graveyard of ghosts. Amid the chaos, Captain Erich Lang, a German officer in his late 20s, carried a secret no one else in his unit knew. He wasn't fighting for Hitler anymore. He was fighting to stay alive, and to protect something buried beneath the city that could change everything about the war's end. Lang's division had been stationed near the Reich Chancellery, defending the last line against advancing Soviet troops. But 3 nights earlier, his superior, Colonel Weiss, had given him an envelope sealed with red wax. No insignia, no orders, just a short message. If Berlin falls, deliver the package to Valhalla. Trust no one. The package was small, wrapped in oilcloth and bound with a steel clasp. Lang hadn't opened it, not yet. But every instinct told him this was something far beyond military protocol. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized. Valhalla wasn't a place on any map. By dawn, his unit was reduced to a handful of men, exhausted and terrified. They took shelter in the ruins of a church as Soviet tanks rolled closer. Lang crouched behind a broken altar, his breath fogging in the cold air. He stared at the package, and for the first time, he noticed faint letters scratched into the metal clasp. Coordinates, latitude and longitude, but not for any location in Berlin. It pointed to the Bavarian Alps, hundreds of kilometers south. As shells exploded outside, Lang made his decision. He tore off his insignia, burned his papers, and took the package. He would desert, risk everything, and try to reach those coordinates. That night, he slipped through the back streets of the burning city. Bodies lay scattered in the rubble. The sky glowed orange from the fires of a dying empire. He passed groups of desperate civilians, soldiers too young to shave, men too old to run, all fighting for a cause already lost. As he reached the outskirts, he heard a voice behind him. "Going somewhere, Captain." He turned. A woman stood in the shadows, wearing a Soviet medic's uniform. But her accent wasn't Russian. It was English. She raised her hand slowly, revealing she carried no weapon. "I think you have something that belongs to us," she said. Lang's blood ran cold. Whoever she was, she knew about the package. He took a step back, his hand gripping the pistol at his belt. "How do you know me?" he demanded. The woman smiled faintly. "Because," she whispered, "I've been following you since Warsaw." Before he could react, a shell exploded nearby, throwing them both to the ground. When the dust cleared, she was gone, vanished into the smoke. But lying where she had stood was something that froze him in place. A dog tag. British issue. With her name engraved. Eleanor Graves. Lang stared at it, heart pounding. He didn't know who she was, or how she knew about his mission, but now he was certain of one thing. He wasn't the only one after the package. And as the red sky burned above Berlin, Captain Erich Lang disappeared into the night, beginning a race across a dying Germany, where enemies and allies would soon blur into one terrifying truth. 3 days later, Captain Erich Lang was far from Berlin. He'd traded his uniform for a civilian coat, his pistol hidden beneath it, and the mysterious package strapped tight under his arm. He traveled by night, through villages already crawling with Soviet patrols and German deserters desperate to vanish. The roads were broken, the bridges gone, and every mile carried the stench of smoke and defeat. But Lang kept moving, always south, toward the coordinates carved into that metal clasp. The Bavarian Alps. Whatever Valhalla was, it was waiting there. Near Leipzig, he found an abandoned farmhouse and decided to rest. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rolling through the distance. He placed the package on the table and stared at it again. He'd resisted opening it for days, but something about the woman's words haunted him. "I think you have something that belongs to us." He took out his knife and carefully pried the clasp open. Inside was no gold, no documents, no codebooks. Just a small black notebook wrapped in cloth and a single photograph. The photo showed 4 men in SS uniforms standing in front of a castle, their faces stern and confident. But it was the man standing at the center that made Lang's stomach twist. Colonel Weiss, his commanding officer. And beside him was Lang himself. Only he had no memory of ever being there. Thunder cracked, and in that instant a shadow moved behind the window. Lang reached for his gun, but before he could aim, the door burst open. And there she was, Eleanor Graves. Rain dripping from her hair, her pistol steady in her hand. "You're not easy to follow, Captain," she said calmly. Lang aimed back. "Who are you, MI6? Her eyes didn't flinch, not anymore. She stepped inside slowly, her voice low and deliberate. "What's in that package? It's not what you think. It's a list of names." Lang frowned. "Names of what?" "Scientists," she said, "and officers connected to something called Project Valhalla." The word hit him like a bullet. He'd heard whispers, rumors of a final Nazi experiment, one so secret even the SS called it the God Project. But no one ever spoke of it aloud. Eleanor continued, her tone tightening. "We intercepted transmissions weeks ago. Your Colonel Weiss was one of its architects. He wasn't defending Berlin, he was trying to erase it, to cover his tracks before the Allies could uncover what they built." Lang shook his head, gripping the notebook. "I was part of his command. I would have known." "Would you?" she said quietly. "You think memory means anything to men like Weiss?" Her words unsettled him. He glanced again at the photo, at the version of himself, standing beside Weiss in front of that castle. The same castle that matched the coordinates in the clasp. "You're saying I was part of this?" he asked. "I'm saying," she whispered, "you might be the only one left who knows how to find it." Outside, engines roared, trucks, voices shouting in Russian. Lang looked toward the window. Soviets, they'd been tracked. Eleanor turned to him sharply. "If they take that notebook, the war doesn't end. It just begins again under a new flag." Without another word, they ran out the back door, into the storm, through fields lit by flashes of artillery fire. Behind them, the farmhouse exploded in flame as a shell hit its roof. Lang didn't look back. He just followed the woman who had once been his enemy, the only person who seemed to know what the truth really was. Hours later, they hid in an abandoned train yard. Eleanor tore a map from her satchel and spread it on the floor. She pointed to a small mark near the Austrian border. "That Valhalla," she said. Lang stared. "It's real." She met his eyes. "It's worse than real." As dawn broke, the two fugitives climbed aboard a freight train heading south. The world they'd known was collapsing behind them. And ahead, in the heart of the Alps, waited the final secret of the Third Reich. And neither of them would come back the same. The train cut through the dawn mist like a ghost. Each turn of the wheels carried Captain Lang and Eleanor deeper into the south, deeper into what remained of the Third Reich's dying heart. For 2 days, they traveled in silence, hiding among crates of medical supplies and stolen art. The further they went, the fewer signs of life they saw. Just mountains, mist, and silence. By the third night, the tracks ended at a half-collapsed tunnel deep in the Bavarian Alps. From there, they went on foot. The air grew thinner, colder, the path steep. And then through the snow and fog, they saw it. A castle, vast, black stone walls rising from the cliffs like the spine of some ancient beast. It was the same one from the photograph. Valhalla. As they approached, the gate creaked open. No guards, no lights. Inside, the halls were lined with shattered glass and burned papers, signs of a hasty evacuation. But everything smelled faintly of oil and ozone, like electricity and death. They found an elevator shaft behind a false wall, its doors scorched from an explosion. Lang forced it open. A single cable remained intact, leading down into the dark. Without hesitation, Alina grabbed the cable and began to descend. At the bottom, they entered a vast underground chamber. The air was freezing, the silence absolute. Rows of machines stood dormant, massive steel cylinders connected by thick cables and glass tubes filled with dark liquid. In the center of the room stood a raised platform, and above it, a single light still flickered weakly. On the floor nearby lay a body, Colonel Weiss. Lang knelt beside him. Weiss's uniform was burned, his chest riddled with shrapnel. Clutched in his hand was a blood-stained notebook, identical to the one Lang carried. Alina picked it up, scanning the pages. Her expression changed, fear, disbelief. "This wasn't a weapon," she whispered. "It was a transfer program. They were trying to move consciousness." Lang frowned. "You mean minds?" She nodded. "Bodies die, memories live. Weiss wanted to make soldiers who never forget, never die." Lang's stomach turned. He remembered flashes, rooms like this, the smell of ozone, voices in the dark. Suddenly, pieces of his past didn't fit. The gaps, the blurred months before Berlin. He stepped toward one of the glass tubes. Inside floated a figure, pale, human, motionless. And as the flickering light fell across its face, Lang felt his knees weaken. It was him. An exact copy. Alina stared in horror. "They cloned you," she whispered. "You were Weiss's soldier, you were his experiment." Lang staggered back. Memories surged, injections, screams, the voice of Weiss repeating, perfection through repetition. He realized he hadn't survived the war. He'd been reborn into it. Footsteps echoed above, soldiers shouting in Russian. The Soviets had arrived. Alina turned to Lang. "If they take this place, they'll continue the work. You know what you have to do." Lang hesitated, then nodded. He looked around the chamber, the cables, the fuel lines, the volatile chemicals. One bullet would be enough. He handed Alina the notebook. "Take it, burn it when you're clear." She grabbed his hand. "Eric, don't." But he smiled faintly. "Maybe this time I stay dead." As she fled through the tunnels, gunfire erupted behind her. Then a blinding flash lit up the mountain, and Valhalla vanished in fire. Days later, Allied scouts found only rubble. No survivors. No trace of the machines. But weeks after the war ended, a rumor began to spread among intelligence circles. A British agent had vanished somewhere in the Alps. And in one of the recovered photos, taken near a refugee camp, a man walked past the camera. Same eyes, same scar. Same face as Captain Eric Lang. The war was over. But perhaps Valhalla had succeeded.